cold afternoon in Flushing, Queens, Clay Holmes took the mound for the New York Mets, making his third start of the season. Xavier Edwards led off the top of the first and singled on a 1-1 count to right field to get things started for the Marlins. Kyle Stowers went first pitch hunting, and Holmes threw him a four-seam fastball inside, getting him to pop up to Francisco Lindor at shortstop for the first out of the inning. Matt Mervis then stepped to the plate and struck out on a 2-2 sweeper for the second out. Griffin Conine then worked the count full and walked, putting runners on first and second with 2 outs. Holmes lost control of the strike zone after this at-bat and walked Otto Lopez on 4 straight pitches to load up the bases. Liam Hicks inside out of the line drive to left field, and he drove in Xavier Edwards and Griffin Conine to give the Marlins an early 2-0 lead. Derek Hill then smoked the line drive to center field, but Tyrone Taylor was able to make the play and get the Mets out of the inning. So Connor Gillespie took the mound for the Marlins, up 2-0, facing Francisco Lindor to lead it off for the New York Mets, and Lindor ripped a 3-1 pitch for a home run to the second deck in right field to get the Mets on the board, now down 2-1. Connor Gillespie had a hard time getting ahead of hitters in this game. Possibly it was the cold that was getting to him, but he did manage to get Juan Soto to fly out to left field on a 2-1 pitch. Pete Alonso got ahead 1-0, then grounded out to Javier Sonoja, who completed the throw to Matt Mervis at first for the second out. Sonoja got the start at shortstop for the Marlins today, and Xavier Edwards was playing DH. Brandon Nimmo then struck out, and that ended the first inning, with the Mets down 2-1. So Clay Holmes took the mound back in the second inning, hoping to settle in, and he struck out Graham Pauley on a 3-2 pitch. Xavier Sonoja singled on a line drive to center field, but he was doubled up on a strike him out, throw him out double play as Holmes struck out Xavier Edwards looking, and then Hayden Sanger caught Sonoja stealing for the third out. Hayden Sanger has done a fantastic job filling in for Luis Torrens, who's filling in for Francisco Alvarez, coincidentally. In the bottom of the second inning, Mark Vientos led off and grounded out to the third baseman Graham Pauley for the first out. Sterling Marte worked the count full before drawing a walk. Tyrone Taylor then popped out to Pauley at third base for the second out. And Brett Beatty, getting the start at second base, grounded out to Matt Mervis at first for the third out. So we move on to the top of the third inning. Holmes went back to work. He got Kyle Stowers to fly out to Nimmo in left field. He then struck out Matt Mervis for the second time for 2 quick outs. Griffin Conine, who seems like he's going to be a hell of a player, singled on a line drive to Soto in right field, but Holmes then settled down and got the next batter, Otto Lopez, striking him out on a down-and-away slider. So we move to the bottom of the fourth inning. Hayden Sanger's leading off. He grounded out to Connor Gillespie, who made the toss over to Matt Mervis at first base to record the first out of the inning. Francisco Lindor tried to check his swing, but was unable to, and he tapped one right back to the mound. So Gillespie made another out there, throwing back to Mervis. Juan Soto then came to the plate, and he singled to left field. Pete Alonso then came up. He popped up a sky-high ball behind second base. The wind took it towards right field. It dropped just inside of the foul line, so it ended up being a double for Alonso. Soto scored. He got an RBI. Otto Lopez tried to make the play. He couldn't get to it. Brandon Nimmo then came to the bat, and he ended the inning with a ground out ball to Otto Lopez at second. So after 3 full innings, we have a 2-2 tie. Move on to the top of the fourth inning. Clay Holmes had a great inning this time. He struck out the side of Liam Hicks, Derek Hill, and Derek Pauley. Mark Vientos led off the bottom of the fourth inning for the Mets, but he lined out to Derek Hill in center for the first out. Sterling Marte then reached base on an error by Connor Gillespie. He still has it base running wise, so he's started to show off his base running abilities here, and he stole second base to put a runner in scoring position with 1 out. That's what Sterling Marte brings to the table. He's not quite the player that he was before. He's not as good as fielder. He still has a good arm. He's not as deadly a hitter as he was before, but in small stretches, Sterling Marte can give you glimpses of what he once was. He has some pop. He's a decent hitter. He's going to put the ball in the gap. He's going to drive in some runs. He crowds the play, so he's going to get hit a lot, as we've already seen so far this year. And he can steal some bases. So he stole the base here, put himself in scoring position. It's 1 out. However, Tyrone Taylor popped out to Otto Lopez at second for the second out, And Brett Beatty, who's still trying to find himself, struck out for the third out. So, we left Starling Marte in scoring position. We'll move on now to the top of the fifth inning. Holmes went back out. He struck out Javier Zanoja for the first out. Xavier Edwards then lined out to Tyrone Taylor for the second out. And then he struck out Kyle Stowers to end the inning. So the Marlins pulled Connor Gillespie going to the bottom of the fifth inning. Like I mentioned earlier, he was having a hard time getting ahead of counts. He was falling behind on pretty much every batter. His pitch count was getting up there. He just wasn't looking very comfortable. He wasn't looking like the pitcher that he was the last game when he, really pitched well against the Mets. So they decided to bring on Calvin Foucher. And Foucher was greeted by Hayden Singer, who singled on a line drive to left field to get things started for the Mets. Francisco Lindor then reached on a fielder's choice. Both runners were safe. So now we have first and second, nobody out. Juan Soto came to the plate. Soto flew out to deep center field. It was deep enough that Lindor was able to tag and go to third. So now we have runners on first and third, one out. Pete Alonso then walked on a 3-2 pitch, moving Lindor to second, loading the bases for Brandon Nimmo. Brandon has definitely been struggling so far this season, but he came through in this at-bat. He jumped on the first pitch he saw. It was a curveball. He had a line drive over the head of Jeff Conine in left field. One hopped the fence, opposite field 2-run double. Mets now had the lead 4-2. Nimmo on second base, Alonso on third base. And then the Marlins brought in Xavier Curry to face Starling Marte. And Marte immediately joined the hit parade with a line drive to shallow right field, just past the outstretched glove of Otto Lopez, who dove attempting to make the play, but he wasn't able to. Both Alonso and Nimmo scored in the play, so now the Mets' lead was extended to 6-2. Tyrone Taylor then flew out to Stowers in right field, and that ended the inning. So now Clay Holmes has a 6-2 lead. We're going into the top of the sixth inning. He got Matt Mervis to fly out to Soto in right field for the first out. Griffin Conine then worked the count full and then drew a walk, his second walk of the game. Otto Lopez then doubled to center field, moving Conine to third base. So now we have runners on second and third, one out. So once again, Mendoza kind of gave him an extra batter to see if he could get out of it. That was after he walked Griffin Conine, and that batter was Otto Lopez. And, unfortunately, Holmes was not able to get that out. So he got pulled again. This is the third consecutive start where he was kind of given that rope, and he just couldn't do it. So Mendoza then went to the bullpen. He brought on Huascar Brazoban in relief of Clay Holmes again. So Brazoban got Hicks to ground out to first. Alonso took the ball and assisted for the second out. So a run scored. Griffin Conine scored in that play, so now the Mets' lead was cut to 6-3. Derek Hill then hit a fly ball to right center field that just kept carrying on this day with the wind for a 2-run home run. Now the Marlins were within 1 run. The score is 6-5. Brazoban then got the third out, getting Graham Pauley to line out to Nimmo in left field. So now, the game's going back and forth. It looked like we were going to, run away with the game 6-2. The Marlins come back in the game. How do the Mets respond? So now we go to the bottom of the sixth inning. Brett Beatty singled on a ground ball to third base that Pauley made a play on. He tried to make the throw off balance, but Beatty beat it out. Luis Angel Acuna came in to pinch run for Beatty. Hayden Singer then dropped the bunt that Liam Hicks just barely was able to make a play on and get him out. Or did he? The Mets challenge and reviews confirmed that Singer had just beaten the throw, so he was credited with a bunt single. So now we have Acuna on second base. We have Singer on first base, nobody out. Francisco Lindor flew out to deep center field. Acuna tagged. He moved over to third base. The Marlins then brought in Ronnie Henriquez to relieve Xavier Curry, and immediately intentionally walked Juan Soto. So now Pete Alonso is up with the bases loaded, and he ripped the first pitch he saw, a double to the left center field gap to clear the bases. Henriquez then walked Nimmo on 4 pitches before coming back to strike out Mark Vientos for the second out of the inning. Starling Marte was then hit for the third time this season to reload the bases, this time for Tyrone Taylor. However, Tyrone Taylor flew out to left center field on a brilliant diving catch by Derek Hill to save the Marlins, because that would have been easily 3 more runs, but he got the Marlins out of that. So now we move to the top of the 7th inning. Luis Angel Acuna stayed in the game. He's playing second base now as he pinch ran for Beatty in the prior half inning. Brazoban was still on the mound, and he gave up a leadoff single to Javier Zanoja before striking out Xavier Edwards. Mendoza went to the bullpen. He decided to bring on A.J. Minter to face Kyle Stowers, but the Blue Jays then pinch hit for Stowers with Dane Myers. Myers, however, struck out for the second out of the inning. The Jays then pinch hit Eric Wagman for Matt Mervis, but Minter was able to get him to fly out to nimble left field to retire the side. So now we go into the home half of the seventh inning. The Marlins brought on Duarbert Arias to replace Ronnie Henriquez. Luis Angel Acuna, getting his first at bat of the game, singled on a line drive to left field, and then immediately stole second base. Hayden Senger then grounded out to first baseman Eric Wagman, advancing Acuna to third base. So now we have a runner on third base and one out. Francisco Lindor up. Francisco had flown out to center field his last two at-bats, and he flew out to left center field again this at-bat. This time it's a sacrifice fly that pushes the score up to 10-5 Mets. Juan Soto singled on a line drive to left field right after, but Alonso flew out to Dane Myers in right field to end the inning. So now we move to the top of the eighth inning. We're up 5. Mendoza brought on Danny Young to replace A.J. Minter. Young got the Marlins out 3 up, 3 down, getting Griffin Conine to ground out to Acuna at second, Otto Lopez on a ground out to Lindor at shortstop, and getting a third strike call on Liam Hicks to end the inning. In the bottom of the eighth inning, Brandon Nimmo grounded out to Graham Pauley at third base, completing the throw over to Eric Wagman at first. Mark Vientos then singled to right field. He advanced to second base on a line drive single by Sterling Marte. So now we have runners on first and second and one out. Tyrone Taylor flew out to center field, and then Luis Angel Acuna was called out on strikes, and that's how the eighth inning ended. So the Mets brought on Jose Siri to replace Soto defensively. Siri moved over to center field. Tyrone Taylor shifted over from center field to right field. The Mets also brought on Reed Garrett to pitch the ninth inning in relief of Danny Young. Reed started the inning off by striking out Derek Hill to start the ninth inning. Then he got Graham Pauley to ground out to Alonso at first, who tossed the ball over to Garrett to complete the second out. And then Javier Zanoja grounded out to Luis Angel Acuna, who threw over to Alonso to get the third and final out of the ninth inning. Now, some key takeaways from this game. Clay Holmes pitched into the sixth inning. He officially went 5 1/3. He gave up 4 runs on 5 hits. He walked 3. He did strike out 10. Holmes didn't pitch poorly, but he didn't pitch great. He was just okay. Like I mentioned, he was given rope again for the third consecutive start by Carlos Mendoza, and each time he failed in that opportunity, in that situation, and then the bullpen had to come on. He did strike out a lot of Marlins. This is a young team. It's a free swinging team that, has something to do with it. But his stuff is good. He has good stuff. He just needs to command it better. He needs to attack the zone better. Brazoban finally got touched up a little. He gave up a run in his inning of work. He raised his season ERA to 1.08. A.J. Minter, Danny Young, and Reed Garrett combined to pitch the final 2 2/3 innings. They gave up no runs, no hits, and got 3 strikeouts. Offensively, Francisco Lindor was 1 for 4 with the leadoff home run. He had 2 RBIs. He scored 2 runs. Juan Soto was 2 for 4. He had 2 runs scored. Pete Alonso was 2 for 4, including a bases-clearing double after Juan Soto was intentionally walked in front of him. He now has 15 RBIs in the Mets' 10th game of the season. Brandon Nimmo is still scuffling. However, he had a big bases-loaded double to drive in 2 runs. Sterling Marte had a good day. He was 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs. The combo of Brett Baty, Luis Acuna went 2 for 5, 2 runs scored. Each of them got a hit apiece. Hayden Senger filling in for Luis Torrens went 2 for 4 with another caught stealing. He's doing fantastic behind the plate, throwing out runners, and scoring a good game as well. You have to give him credit. So the Mets win this one 10-5. The winning streak is now 6 games. The Mets will go for the second series sweep in a row at home and extend the winning streak to 7 games when they play the finale of the 3-game series versus the Marlins Wednesday afternoon, with game time starting at 1:10 p.m. Eastern. Tyler McGill will take the mound for the Mets. He's looking to move to 3-0. He'll go up against the Marlins' Dan Meyer. I'll be back after the game to recap it and provide any other noteworthy Met news. But until then, Met fans, let's go Mets.